first I want to congratulate you with your release, Hiding in Plain Sight. This is your debut as a solo artist. How was it to work on this release compared to what you've done before?
Well, it was quite different. There wasn't a band to take into the studio and record basic tracks. So we built all the parts from kind of the ground up. I did all the rhythm guitar tracks, and Terry Brown, the producer, would sketch in some drum patterns and things. Jeez, excuse me. And then as the songs developed, we built upon what each musician had previously brought to the table. So in that regard, the basic tracks were a little different than with Tiles when we would all play together in the studio, because we still did that. And then as a side benefit, it was really quite thrilling to get all of the tracks that came in from the guests, whether it was the drums or a guitar solo or the bass parts from Kevin Chown. It was almost like going shopping, right? I could ask people to participate, and fortunately they all agreed to do it. And because I wasn't there when they recorded their own tracks, probably in their home studio, or Terry had recorded quite a few people there in Toronto, but I wasn't there for all of that. It was really great to hear things for the first time that came back from everybody's contribution.
I think it's an interesting way of working with so many people, and they're all in different places. How do you coordinate this?
Well, it does take a little bit of administrative skill and coordination, but that's why the project took about 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
because it takes time to contact people and to make arrangements and discuss kind of what we're looking for. So I think if we actually had a deadline, I would have been in big trouble. So it does take a lot of coordination. I started with a master list of potential musicians who I thought would be appropriate for the individual song. It wasn't just, hey, this is Peter Frampton, we got to find a place for him. It was like, well, Peter Frampton is willing to make a guest appearance. Where is he most suited? So Terry and I took a lot of time and effort to match people's styles on their instrument with what the song required. But it did. I had this big spreadsheet with all the song names and all the different instruments, because, after a certain amount of time goes by, I forget stuff. So there was a big spreadsheet and a lot to keep track of, for sure.
Can imagine. Would you like me to share a little bit about the concept behind this album? Because I found that was what attracted me a lot to listen to the music in the first place.
Sure. Um, well, I didn't set out to do a solo album, and I didn't set out to make it the concept album that it turned into. Um, as a songwriter, I have a backlog of songs all over the place. And every now and then I'll go to work with Terry, and we'll do just quick demos, just like a guitar part. And like I said before, a scratch, a drum pattern of sorts. So that's kind of where this backlog of songs came from over the past few years. And then when it came time for the lyrics, the first couple lyrics I came up with ended up being influenced by my experience with my dad's challenges with Alzheimer's disease. And once I started on probably the third or fourth set of lyrics, and I just kept having more visions and more of that experience really seemed to come back and resonate with me. I thought, well, if this is where my creativity is kind of happening, then I should probably go with the flow. And then that's what happened. It became certain touch points within the whole approximate 10-year experience that I could reflect on, without hopefully being too depressing about it. I mean, it's a sad topic, of course, but I tried to not make it overly um, distressing or sad for people. And I think this many of the songs, if you didn't really know that that's what I was talking about, that particular disease or condition, I think the lyrics still contain enough um, flexibility within them so that you can still attach maybe the experience to something different than Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I would like to look a little bit at a couple of the tracks on the album and a bit about the background of these. And I think the first one that stood out for me was "The Heart of You," for its being very sweet, if I can say so. What can you tell me about this track?
This is one of my favorite tracks too. They wouldn't be on the album if they all weren't, you know, we didn't think they were good. But The Heart of You does really stand out because it gave me a chance to write with an old college friend of mine, Terry Sampson, who after he left college, he went on to be a successful professional songwriter. Um, so when I looked at this project, I certainly wasn't opposed to collaborating with people. So there's several collaborations when it comes to songwriting. And I asked him if he would be willing to, maybe write a song with me. And he said yes. And by then I told him that this kind of the theme, the concept. And he took an interest in that, unfortunately, in some ways, because his mom had suffered from dementia. So he was able to write from his personal experience. And I think he really brings a perspective lyrically to the album that I hadn't covered yet. So you're right. It's got a ray of sunshine, a silver lining amongst the clouds, I guess you could say, because it's a heartfelt tribute to his mom. And I think that's what really, well, I know for sure because Peter Frampton said how much he really liked the song and enthusiastically was willing to play on it. So that's where that came from.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I was also wondering a bit about Warning, which you released as a single. Can you tell me a little bit about this track?
Warning Signs?
Yeah, Warning Signs, yeah.
Um, yeah, that was one of the second or third sets of lyrics that I wrote. So once I was starting to, the concept was taking shape, I thought, well, one of the problems that me and my family, or my family and I, suffered was being able to recognize just exactly what was going wrong with my dad. We didn't have any experience with dementia or Alzheimer's, those types of diseases within the family. And so it had never crossed our mind that this was what was beginning to happen to him. It's just his behavior got kind of confusing. Because on one hand, he would be perfectly lucid and his memory was great, but then there'd be other things where you wouldn't know really where he was coming from or why he couldn't remember something. And so that was the concept behind Warning Signs. It's like, well, there were these little signs that I missed, and when we were wondering what was happening to his behavior. And just to underscore that point, by the time we got him to a neurologist for a diagnosis of some kind, they give people this little sheet of paper with 10 questions on it, ask you to do some easy math, or not math, but arithmetic, adding and subtracting, and put the hands on the clock for 10:45 a.m., those types of questions. And he got none of them right. So he had progressed pretty far along with the disease before we even had a formal diagnosis. So that's kind of the long story behind warning signs conceptually. Musically, it's a fun tune. I've known Jeff Coleman, the lead guitar player, for a long, long time. With he's from Toledo and I'm from Detroit, so our bands would do lots of shows together. And Kevin Chown, the bassist on 95% of the album, was in a band with Jeff. So, and the drummer Shane Gallus, they all are in Cosmo Squad, which is a really phenomenal instrumental progressive rock fusion type band. And then I had always been a big fan of Michael Sadler from Saga, and Michael had worked with Terry on a couple projects there in Toronto, so it made me think, boy, I can hear Michael Sadler's voice on this song. And I asked Terry if he would approach him to see if he'd be interested, and fortunately he was. So it was great to have things like this come together.
Yeah, I can imagine. If I look at The Darkest Hour, I figured it, as the name suggests, it is already a bit darker atmosphere. But for it somehow has a bit brighter end to me, a bit of a twist in that song. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Mm-hmm. Well, throughout the project, I was acutely aware that what the subject matter was about. So a lot of times as a songwriter, I don't know, do you play instruments or are you a songwriter?
No, not actively, just
okay.
Occasionally for fun.
Right, that's okay.
Somebody sent me an instrument this week.
Oh yeah.
Showed up unexpected. I have no idea who sent me this.
Okay.
So maybe I'll pick it up.
Right. It only makes one or two sounds, but it's still, tambourines are still fun, right?
Yeah.
So because the music was typically written first, it gave me a chance to really go in a couple different directions with the lyrics. A song like Second Ending, which is dark and moody, those lyrics fit that atmosphere. And then in The Darkest Hour, it seemed to really work by matching that kind of that diagnosis phase of what we were experiencing with my dad with a little bit brighter, upbeat type music. I was kind of nervous because you don't want to have a nice, happy pop song while you're talking about someone's, battle with the terminal disease, of course. But once again, hopefully in a lot of ways, the lyrics can mean something more to people than just what I had kind of originally, the framework I originally put the songs in. But this was, of course, as a longtime Jethro Tull fan, it was quite a thrill to have Martin Barr and Doane Perry contribute. I remember getting the guitar parts back from Martin, and I was just, Terry got them and played them for me. I just remember being so, I don't want to say overwhelmed, but my reaction was kind of surprising, because not as though he wouldn't be doing, great guitar work and stuff, but it had a certain energy and personality to it that really helped bring this song to life. And then, of course, he surprised us all by playing flute, and mandolin and some additional rhythm guitar. And then, of course, the great lead work that he does. So I branched off a little bit there, but hopefully that kind of covers what was going on with that song.
Okay, yeah. Um, Last one I want to talk about is Wilderness Years. I picked this one specifically because it felt similar to me to a song from another band that's also in this series that for the viewers it will be published in a couple days. It's a metal band, and they also had the same topic in mind. And when I heard that song, and I was also listening to this album at the same time in preparation, I felt some similarities in this because it seemed to also have some sort of reflection to something nice, something look to go back up. That's what I felt with that so much. Can you tell me about this track?
Yeah. Once again, this has got a little bit more of an up tempo and positive vibe to it, even though the subject matter is, of course, dealing with as someone's mental capabilities deteriorate. Um, you never know at what point, I don't imagine, you never know at what point they know that they've got the disease. And when the disease kind of has taken over their awareness and things, and now they just kind of are existing, even though it seems for a while there that they can exist fairly. Uh, Sometimes the words are hard to define correctly because maybe they're happy. I don't know. My dad responded to going for walks with us and music and different things. So you'd like to think that even though he didn't really talk anymore or he didn't recognize us, there was on some level he still enjoyed some things. So Wilderness Years is just a reflection of that person at the point where they know it's going on and they know that it's kind of the end of their life is predestined at that point, and they're moving into the wilderness years of their existence. And this was one of the songs where Randy McStein sings lead vocals, and you might know him these days as the touring guitarist with Porcupine Tree. And he's going to be touring with Steven Wilson's new release and new tour. So Randy turns in a great vocal on this one. And because the object of the album was to let the songs be what they want to be. So I wasn't stuck in kind of a stylistic corner where people that maybe had expectations. So when Terry suggested, oh, let's put a saxophone solo on this, we tried it and it turned out great. But as you recognized, as the song has that positive vibe, and then it gets to the end where there's the big long ending section with all of these vocals that, kind of reflects back what it says. It keeps saying once upon a time as the person, the best years are behind them. But I felt it was important to close it out with not dwelling on the end of someone's life at that point, but looking back on, all the good things that we had as a family and the relationship and stuff. So it's interesting you picked that one out. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Now that the album is out, it took you quite some time to create this. How do you look back upon the whole process? If you would pick up something like that again, would you do something different maybe, or?
It's it's really quite I'm quite pleasantly surprised. So on one hand, I'm grateful that it seems to be getting quite a bit of attention, and I didn't I didn't realize that it would had the chance to resonate so deeply with people. Um, I mean, obviously, as a songwriter, you want what you write to mean something and have hopefully a good impact on people. But just the subject matter itself, it's like you can't feel good about, oh well, this person kind of relates to the lyrics because then that means they're having the same experiences. And you don't I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So, and because the Alzheimer's and dementia organizations, they have grown and substantially. So there's a lot of information out there, and they continue to build awareness amongst the populations and stuff. So I didn't feel like my 11 songs were really going to make much of a dent in that kind of thing. But I was I was mistaken from the standpoint that just like I was unaware in the early stages of my dad's disease, somebody else, this could be it could be something that brings it to their attention so that as parents age and grandparents and things, and you um, maybe not have this on your radar, but because these songs came out and people listened to them and they like, whoa, yeah, I never thought of that. So both on from the standpoint that it is helping to bring awareness to the Alzheimer's and dementia, and if it helps people to know that you're if you're dealing with this stuff, you're certainly not alone. Um, and maybe the songs put some feelings to what are experiencing or have experienced.
Yeah. Okay.
Did
Um,
I miss the question?
no, I think you have a very nice way of explaining that.
Okay.
I was wondering because very often people want to ask that kind of questions. Do you intend to bring this music on the roads?
I hadn't planned on that just because it'd take a I don't know. For one thing, I don't know if there would be any demand for it necessarily. Um, but because the songs have such full arrangements and
Yeah.
would require some, 6 or 7 guys to cover all the instrumentation, it seems kind of unworkable. Um, but then I thought that this, at least locally or for some special events, I could do stripped down versions of the songs because they all were written with just me and an acoustic guitar for the most part. So there's certainly the essence of the song with a singer and me on guitar and a bass player. We could do renditions of the song. Um, so, and I'll go back to that question. I remembered what I forgot to answer. Um, so I don't have any plans to go on the road with it. I wouldn't be opposed to it if it was something that was feasible. There probably will be some localized shows in the Midwest United States because my plan is to partner with local Alzheimer's associations, and if an event like that would provide an opportunity to play a few songs, that would be great. Um, but going back to your previous question, since I had a brainstorm, um, it was I look back on it and like I said before, I am surprised, pleasantly surprised. And it certainly taught me a lot about more musical arrangement type things. Really dissecting the song and building it up, like I mentioned way earlier. As someone contributed a part, it would, from that point on, it would inform what other parts needed to happen. So what's next? I don't know that I would do a quote unquote solo album. I mean, Tiles never really went away. Our singer he kind of retired, and we haven't figured out what to do next. But this project has shown me that maybe for a situation like that, we have several different singers come in for another band album. And then if there's live opportunities there, you just ask one or two of the people that sang on the album to play the live shows. So also what's next is we're working on a vinyl release for Europe.
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah.
So it's got 4 bonus tracks on it. It's got a whole different running order, so it's a whole different listening experience. And it's a double album, and we're making every effort to see if it can be released for the European Record Store Day in April.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So,
I'm looking forward to see that. Usually, at least in the Netherlands, they have a massive record fair during the Record Store Day. So
okay.
they put a lot of attention towards the releases that come out around that time. So looking forward to see it then.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about because it's like I said, it's a 15 songs, so there's 4 bonus tracks, and the songs are mostly in a different order. So it is a different listening experience. And Hugh Syme, the artist, the graphics art guy, he's doing some new images and things. So it's a whole rebirth of the project, I guess you'd say, on vinyl.
Nice. Very last question I have, since we're in a Christmas series. Do you have a Christmas wish or some wisdom that you want to share with the world?
Well, I wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season, Christmas and New Year's. Hopefully the world situation calms down a little bit, and we don't have quite so many conflicts that seem to have cropped up these last few years. So another Christmas wish is I'm really crossing my fingers that the album does well, because I'm going to donate the proceeds to the Alzheimer's charities. So I guess I'll be selfish, and my wish is for everybody to get a copy of the CD under their tree.
That's very nice. Yeah.
But seriously, I just, would always wish people the best during the holiday season.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. I will put a link to some local Alzheimer funds so people can donate if they see this interview and they feel inspired to do so. I hope that we can make a little bit of a difference, at least.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate your effort and time to talk to me about this.
All right.
Very nice of you.
Thank you very much, and I wish you a good evening.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.